time has come once again for you to take your daily dose of truth, covering the debauchery, decadence, and mental retardation of the entire fucking world. Join us as we mock the displays of hypocrisy that infect us all, and expose the fascists and swine among us, shitting on conventional wisdom, shitting on your bitch-ass face, resisting statism, promoting liberty. Welcome home. Welcome to Planet Fuck You.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Welcome home to Planet Fuck You, where we raise a middle finger up to these faggots and let them know exactly how I feel. Today is March 10th, 2013. And as we check the headlines on planetfuckyou.com, we're confronted with this. Former TSA agent. We are laughably inept faggots. We see a nice picture here of some TSA sheiks in their Muslim garb. The link says, TSA agent just shits all over sacred institution. We pretty much suck balls. Well, I had to read this. We click on the link and it takes us to the New York Post. The headline reads, Former Newark Airport TSA screener says the job does little to keep flyers safe. It is perhaps America's most unsafe airport. Despite being the launching point for one of the planes hijacked on 9/11, Flight 93, which crashed in Pennsylvania, Newark Airport has had several security violations since. The latest, a fake bomb that made it past Transportation Security Administration officers. Here, a Newark TSA screener who recently left the agency tells how silly policies and lazy workers do little to stop real threats. Oh, he's going to shit on his compatriots, huh? A lot of what we do is make-believe. I've had to screen small children and explain to their parents I had no choice but to check them. I would only place my hands on their arms and bottom half of their legs, and the entire pat-down lasted 10 seconds. This goes completely against TSA procedure. Because the cameras are recording our every move, we have to do something. If someone isn't checked or even screened properly, the entire terminal would shut down, as this constitutes a security breach. But since most TSA supervisors are too daft to actually supervise, bending the rules is easy to do. Did you know you don't need a high school diploma or GED to work as a security screener? These are the same screeners that TSA Chief John Pistol and Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano refer to as first-class, first line of defense in the war on terror. These are the employees who could never keep a job in the private sector. I wouldn't trust them to walk my dog. An agent got through Newark last week with an improvised explosive device? That's not even news to anyone who works there. It happens all the time. The failure rate is pretty high, especially with federal investigators, and the pat-down itself is ridiculous. As invasive as it is, you still can't find anything using the back of your hand on certain areas. So now this motherfucker's going to complain about that. When there are internal tests conducted by the Newark Training Department, it's easy to cheat because they use our coworkers. You could be working with someone all morning and then they're gone. Word gets around the checkpoint. Someone will come over to you and say, hey, it's Joe. He's got a blue duffel bag. What are the chances of you being on a flight where something happens? We always said it's not a question of if terrorists get through, it's a question of when. Our feeling is nothing's happened because they haven't wanted it to happen. We're not any big deterrent. It's all for show. A real pat-down is when a police officer pulls you over, uses his hands to search, and actually goes in your clothes. We have to use the back of our hands around certain areas. It just doesn't work. It's a really bad way to pat somebody down. If I had to guess, I'm sure lots of things get through. One screener told me about something he did going through security when he went on vacation. Let's just say the screeners did not catch something that was really obvious to anyone who was paying attention. Most TSA screeners know their job is a complete joke. Their goal is to use this as a stepping stone to another government agency. We work in a culture where common sense has no place. All but a very few TSA personnel know they're employed by a bottom-of-the-barrel agency. Our first question to anyone in a wheelchair is to ask if they're able to stand for a pat-down. If someone is in a wheelchair, he likely can't stand. Even when they're sitting, we're required to ask them to move so we can check under their buttocks. All I needed was for a passenger to fall over because I asked them to stand. And if that did happen, the screener would be vilified, and the official PR spin would be that he needed additional training. Sound familiar? Every time you read about a TSA horror story, it's usually about a screener doing what he or she is instructed to do. Supervisors play absolutely no role in day-to-day functions except to tell you not to chew gum. Gum chewing is a huge issue with management. I once saw a supervisor make an officer open his mouth to prove he had a mint and not a piece of gum. Goofing off and half-hour-long bathroom breaks are the only way to break up the monotony. There's also a lot of oogling of female passengers by the male screeners, so ladies, cover up when you get to the airport. These guys are checking you out constantly. A small number of screeners are delusional zealots who believe they're keeping America safe by taking your snow globe, your 2-inch pocket knife, your 4-ounce bottle of shampoo, and performing invasive pat-downs on your kids. Incidentally, the flap over the new rule allowing small pocket knives is overblown. Most of the public doesn't realize it, but you are already allowed to bring scissors, screwdrivers, tweezers, knitting needles, and any number of sharp instruments on board. The rest are only there for the paycheck and generous benefits. Screeners start at $15 per hour, and there's tons of overtime, mainly because they are filling in for the many screeners who don't bother coming to work. For every 40 hours you work, you receive 4 hours of vacation and 4 hours of sick time. One screener didn't come to work for 4 weeks. When he finally reappeared, he asked for another week off. The answer was no. So what did this brainiac decide to do? He took another week off and didn't get terminated. People have been caught falling asleep on the job. They get written up, it's put in a file, and that's it. New hires see how bad it is working there, and believe it or not, TSA does manage to hire some pretty decent people. They just don't last because they can get a normal job. It's the people who've been there a good number of years who could never find employment elsewhere. When you have a real job, it usually means you have to actually work and think, which a lot of them have a hard time doing. Anyone boarding an aircraft should feel maybe only a teeny tiny bit safer than if there were no TSA at all. Man, oh man. What an expose. I mean, coming from a garbage-ass rag like the New York Post, you gotta wonder whether or not it's totally fabricated bullshit. But it's hilarious. I mean, it's a hilarious little narrative, and I just think it's, well, front-page material. Moving on, we check the next headline at planetfuckyou.com, and we see our handy-dandy puppet, Hamid Karzai. Looks like he's at it again, screaming truth to power, saying America is in bed with the Taliban. Well, many of us have known that for a long time, friend. We click the link and it takes us to the state's official news arm, AP. The headline reads, Afghan leader alleges U.S. and Taliban are colluding. Kabul, Afghanistan. Afghan President Hamid Karzai on Sunday accused the Taliban and the U.S. of working in concert to convince Afghans that violence will worsen if most foreign troops leave, an allegation that the top American commander in Afghanistan rejected as categorically false. Karzai said 2 suicide bombings that killed 19 people on Saturday, one outside the Afghan Defense Ministry and the other near a police checkpoint in Eastern Coast Province, showed the insurgent group is conducting attacks to demonstrate that international forces will still be needed to keep the peace after the current combat mission ends in 2014. The explosions in Kabul and Khost yesterday showed that they are at the service of America and the service of this phrase, 2014. They are trying to frighten us into thinking that if the foreigners are not in Afghanistan, we would be facing these sort of incidents, he said during a nationally televised speech about the state of Afghan women. Now, that's pretty amazing there for Hamid Karzai to come out and say that. I mean, of course, he's probably right. It is, of course, in our military's interest to create chaos around the world. Those who are not familiar with Ordo Ab Chao need to read the fuck up. And not just, the book or listen to a couple of rants, but a lot of things. You need to read the fuck up. Moving on, back to planetfuckyou.com. We check the headlines again. It looks like the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has shit on Big Sister's face. The next link says, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to Big Sis. Fuck you. What's this about? Well, looks like the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled that just because someone has a password protect on their cell phone or laptop, that alone doesn't qualify reasonable suspicion to search their shit, like their iPad or their laptop. Pretty questionable, but still, erring on the side of common sense and liberty. So we like that. We click on the link and it takes us to the Washington Times. The headline reads, Court curbs laptop searches at U.S. border. A federal appeals court on Friday said Customs and Border Protection officers cannot confiscate or download every laptop or electronic device brought into the U.S., ruling that people have an expectation their data are private and that the government must have a reasonable suspicion before it starts to do any intensive snooping. Well, no shit. That kind of goes back all the way to the Constitution, doesn't it? Yes, it does. In a broad ruling, the court also said merely putting password protection on information is not enough to trigger the government's reasonable suspicion to conduct a more intrusive search, but it can be taken into account along with other factors, like if you're, Muslim-looking, talking about dumb shit, or just an old lady in a wheelchair, maybe a nun, hey, a little girl. Electronic devices often retain sensitive and confidential information far beyond the perceived point of erasure, notably in the form of browsing histories and records of deleted files. Judge Margaret McCown wrote in the majority opinion, "This quality makes it impractical, if not impossible, for individuals to make meaningful decisions regarding what digital content to expose to the scrutiny that accompanies international travel. A person's digital life ought not be hijacked simply by crossing a border." Oh, really? Well, I must say that we agree with that here at Planet Fuck You, though I think it's hilarious that this judge would come out like, in my ruling, it's just basically that, you're too stupid to even realize that your shit might not have been erased. I just thought that was really cute. Moving on back to planetfuckyou.com, we come upon this scandalous young man. Looks like we've got a teacher busted for fucking his student, giving her some weed and alcohol, and forcing her to give lap dances in class. No shit. I wonder how you force someone to give a lap dance. Well, let's read on and find out. We click the link and it takes us to Columbia Broadcast Systems out of Pittsburgh. Says, police teacher force student to perform lap dances in class. That's nice. How anyone's going to force someone to perform a lap dance, I don't know. We've got a video here of this enterprising young pimp, young up-and-coming escort man. Oh, he just looks like he's about to get busted in his crisp white suit. Let's read on. A second student has come forward accusing a local high school teacher of sexual assault. The 16-year-old victim told police that while at Perry Traditional Academy, teacher Michael White, 29, made her perform lap dances for the male students in his informational technology class. The victim also says White kissed her on the lips in the classroom. Police say the assault didn't stop at the school. They say White also asked the girl to a hotel party that included stripping, but she refused the invitation. The girl says a few days after the invitation, White convinced her to leave the school without permission and during school hours. She said he drove her to his home and they had sex at least 2 times last fall. According to the criminal complaint, White drove the teen to his home, gave her some marijuana and alcohol, and then before having sex with her said it would be blank if you got pregnant by a teacher. I'm assuming it would be fucked up if you got pregnant by a teacher. We have no reason not to be very skeptical of these allegations at this time, said Chuck Gallo, White's defense attorney. And these guys, these attorneys, if you bother looking at this video, are just a couple of fucking clowns. New court documents show White is now charged with 2 counts of involuntary deviant sexual intercourse, 1 count indecent assault, selling or furnishing liquor to minors, sexual assault, corruption of minors, unlawful contact with a minor, and institutional sexual assault of a minor. So basically they're fucking this dude 6 ways to Sunday over this shit. Police indicate they arrested White at his Homewood home, on Wednesday. They had to kick down his door. He refused to allow police with a warrant inside. Police say they will go back to the school where they will talk to other students about possible inappropriate relationships with White. Oh, man. If you're going to be a teacher, you probably should get over, sow your wild oats and not be wanting to fuck the kids. It doesn't matter if they come on to you. It doesn't matter however you try to justify it. You've got to be, the responsible guy in that situation. I just think that's hilarious. And it reminds me of this chomo motherfucker that I know. I wonder if he's still teaching.